Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I thought it would be fun to sit down and show you all of the pan that I've hit in 2020. So if you like to see nice juicy pan, then let's get into it. Okay, as we get started, I like to do these videos to help document other progress that I've made. Obviously, I post empties videos, but sometimes you work on products for quite a while in the year and you don't manage to finish them. But you can document things like pan and things like that, so I find these videos very satisfying. So I'm gonna start out with all my Super Shock shadows and Super Shock formulas because I think they're probably the easiest ones to hit pan on, and then we'll go into like powder products. And as I said, most of these Super Shock shadows showed up in my Partners in Cream project pan because I had an opportunity to work on both of my Steely glitters, which are not featured here, and a lot of my Super Shock shadows. In fact, I managed to hit pan on all of the other Super Shock shadows in my collection that did not already have pan on them, so I'm really excited for that this year. So let's go ahead and get into them. I have 10 of them to show you. The first one here is the shade Twitter Pated. Such a beautiful, like kind of pink kind of shade, but also has a little bit of rose gold to it. Really enjoyed that. Then the next one's gonna look kind of similar. This is Frog from ColourPop. And as you can see, it's got like this pink champagne kind of shade to it, but it also shifts a little bit blue. So beautiful. And then the next one we have here is the shade Wild Thoughts. This one was a little bit difficult because it is such a bold shadow, and I had to like kind of use it sparingly, either as a liner or sometimes I did use it all over the lid, but you don't need a lot of the shade because it is super pigmented. And then the other shade we have here is the shade Cusp, and this is a nice kind of blue leaning green shade. Not my most comfortable color. A lot of these colors were a little bit more difficult to hit pan on than normal because I'm not so, like, it makes sense that I didn't hit pan on like my favorites first. I hit pan on the ones that were my favorites first, and then these that are a little bit more challenging for me to use got used later on in the year. Now the next one I have here is the shade Don't Leave. This one was a little bit difficult of a formula too because it says it's an ultra metallic, but to me it's like a satin. It doesn't really have that much sheen, and you can kind of even see that in the pan here, but we did manage to hit pan on it. And then I have the shade Monkey Business, which is another similar shade in that this one is a matte one, and I do not like it, so I am actually gonna declutter this one at the end of this year, but yeah, not for me. And then next up we have the shade Birthday Wish, which is a beautiful kind of champagne shade. It looks prettier to me in the pan than it does on camera or on my eyes. It always just looks so kind of bland, but I did manage. This one was brand new at the beginning of this year. I got it in December, and so I didn't even open it until we got back here after Christmas break last year. So from like new to hitting pan in 1 year, I'm pretty proud of that. As well as this one, this was the same story. This is Moonwalk from ColourPop. I love this shade so much, and it was brand new, like I said, this year, and then I managed to hit pan on it, which is pretty exciting. And then I also have the shade Sugar here, which is a nice blue color, kind of a blue silvery color. This is such a good shadow to pair with like pastel shades. I really like it. And then I have one that looks really similar. This is Special Delivery, and this is just differentiated just a little bit in that it is more green than blue. See, I'll show you right beside each other. You can see this one's a little bit more blue. This one has just a hint of like mint greenness to it, but it still has a lot of blue undertone too. Okay, now we have one more Super Shock formula before I get into the powder products. This is my Cruella highlighter from ColourPop, and as you can see there, we have really significant good pan in this one. This is one that I initially rolled into the Partners in Cream project pan in order to hit pan on it, and then I hit pan on it and I was enjoying it so much that I then extended my goal to be able to clear out this inner circle here, and I'm just so happy to have used this one. This one is such a special shade to me. It's very hard to wear in the winter, so I'm glad that I'm not going to be working on it anymore at this point and gonna enjoy other shades in the winter. But in the summer and fall, this was such a perfect shade, and I really appreciate that I got so much use out of this one this year. Okay, for the rest of these items that I'm showcasing, they're all powder products, but I believe I've ordered them from like easiest to hit pan on to most difficult to hit pan on. So I'll start out with a face powder. Obviously you have more face to cover with a face powder, so it's a little bit easier to hit pan on. And so I have this Milani powder. It's the Prep Set and Glow, and I managed to hit pan in this in my 20 and 2020 project pan. So, and also have been reaching for it ever since I initially hit pan on it, and so the pan is even wider than it was in like some of those updates, so that's nice. Okay, now moving into eyeshadow, I have 3 products to show you. The first one is from my Too Faced palette, and this shade was really freaking difficult to hit pan on. I believe I was working on this for at least more than 6 months, because this palette, let me tell you, it is tightly pressed. I use this to set my eyelid, and obviously you like use a little bit more of a product like this to set an eyelid versus like to put just into the crease or to put just on the lid. And this thing still took me so long. So believe it or not, even though it's like pan on a cream shade, which I feel is probably the easiest to pan usually to hit pan on in the eyeshadow world, I'm still so freaking proud of this one because this one was difficult for me. The next one I have here comes from my Stila palette. It is actually a blush, but technically I used it as an eyeshadow, and you can tell right where I kind of dip my brush in most of the time. I used a crease brush or something to put it all over my lid, and so I do have some decent little baby pan there, and I'm really excited to have pan in this palette too because this shade is a little bit more difficult for me to get used out of, but I really love it as an eyeshadow, so excited to have some pan in this one. And then the last eyeshadow I have comes from my Modern Renaissance palette, and I hit pan on the shade Love Letter here in a project pan. I believe it was like my Drop 10 Before Summer or maybe the Roulette Pan collab, I don't quite remember. So we have some nice baby pan going on there, and I actually would love to hit some more pan in this palette. I feel like now the newness has worn off and I'm not so scared to use it anymore. I don't know, I know that's like the weirdest thing to say, especially coming from a project panner, but that is something that I wholeheartedly struggle with, is like hitting pan on products that I want to conserve sometimes, but this one no longer fits that category. I am ready to like use it more. I want it to look used and abused, and I think that's something that I'm slowly growing into. But I'm hoping when this video comes around at the end of the year next year that I'll have a lot more pan to show you in this palette. Okay, and the last three items here are the ones that I am extremely proud to show you. So the first one here is from my ABH highlight kit. This is the shade, let's see, I forgot, Starburst, and as you can see we have good, actually like two little areas of pan, this one, and there's a little bitty speck right above it. I am so excited. This took me forever. This pan is so freaking deep. I did not expect for it to take as long as it did to hit pan on this shade, but now I know that this palette retails for $40 and you get your money's worth out of it because these pans are not only pretty large, but they are deep. Let me tell you, they are deep. It was months of almost daily use for this thing before I even got close to pan. So highly recommend this palette if you ever thought about it. Every shade in this palette works for my skin tone, and I'm on the fair to light side. I really quite like this palette. And then last up, probably my two most exciting ones, I have new pan on two blushes in my collection, and I'm so excited for that. So the first one I'll show you here is this Lancome little deluxe size one. I hit pan on this one pretty early in the year, and I was pretty excited because I need pan. I'd rather pan, like hit pan on multiple blushes in my collection than work on finishing one in my collection, because if I were going to try to finish this, I would not use probably any other blush in my collection, but I'd much rather rotate through them and hit pan on them than like just finish one at this point. But I'm so excited to hit pan on this one, especially since it's a more cool tone shade. It's not the easiest to wear because I do tend to prefer warm tones, but this one is a little bit more warm to neutral and I really quite like it too. But I managed to also hit pan on this. This is a Tarte blush from like an old, like this is like a live-in color. It was a couple years ago that they did a Black Friday sale with this, and you got this and 4 eyeshadows, which are almost all gone. This is what the eyeshadow side looked like. I've already either used them, I think I used one of the contour or one of the transition shades as like a contour, and then the metallics in this palette were awful, so I put them into a lotion. But for the most part, this guy right here I bought for the blush because I had not tried the Tarte blush formula and I really wanted to try it. I quite liked this, and I do find it comparable to, like, I have a Tarte blush palette and the level of pigmentation is about the same, and the length of wear maybe wasn't as good with this one. Like maybe this one faded throughout the day where my other palette didn't fade quite as much, but all in all, still, to have such a big large pan and be able to hit pan in this year, I was so excited. That was one of like my hardest goals this year. And I feel like being able to check that box off of like hitting goal on this one was one of my prouder achievements of this year, if that makes sense. But yeah, that is everything. Make sure you let me know in the comments, what are you most proud of this year that you hit pan on? Not that you finished, but that you hit pan on, because let's not forget that panning is progress. It doesn't have to be an empty for it to count as progress. So make sure you let me know in the comments, say hello, and I will see you in the next one.